Hey everybody, it's me Shane and welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm planning to just show you every book that I read last January. It's a Sunday today. It's a pretty chilly day and thus the sweater. And let's just get started. So last January, I read 14 books, one audiobook and 13 fictional books, if I'm not mistaken. This year, I actually created some kind of grading system so that I don't just give out fives easily. I'm easily bought with books, and I think it's just amazing how writers are able to create a world just by words, and that's why I cannot help but give perfect scores to every book that I read, or to most books that I read. That makes me feel like I'm unreliable when I actually recommend books. So, my current criteria is I allot 2 points for the plot line, or a maximum of 2 points for the plot line, a maximum of 2 points as well for well written characters, and 1 point for accessible writing. So I think that's an important part for me, because if I don't understand the story, then it's all futile. Okay, so the first book that I did finish this January and this year is from the Calloway Sisters series, and this is Long Way Down by Kristen Becky Ritchie. This is the ninth book. And this centers on Reich and Daisy. It's 5 years, I guess, out into the future since the beginning of the story. And yeah, they're older. They're more invested with each other. This is the gate to how it transitions into the life that they're gonna live in the future. So they go through a lot here. They suffer as a couple. Honestly, reading this made me think that they're probably like the unluckiest couple in the stories. My heart broke for them. Like, I cannot help but also feel for what they're feeling. And just as they went through the issues that they did, it was sad. It was heartbreaking, because you don't want couples who dream of a life together, who want to build a family and all those things, going through those things. And you want to root for them. You also want to, validate their aspirations, validate the desires that they want to have in the future. So I think I cried a lot whilst reading this book. And I cannot help but cry in the ending as well, because it allows me to peer into the future, not just their future but also the other couple's future. And I just love it. I could not help but gush and be so happy for these people. Like, they're not even real, and I feel like they're my best friends. And you cannot help but break for your best friends when they're going through something really horrible and that they don't deserve, because these people are like, they're so earnest. They're so genuine with just wanting to have a family, wanting to have a good life. Not help but also want those things for them. I mean, I wasn't able to. I'm not ready to read the epilogue novel, because I cannot accept that it's the end. I cannot detach myself from them yet. So I'm, as much as possible, I'm prolonging the ending. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see when I'll be able to read it. So next books that I read was a trilogy, and it's the Inheritance Games trilogy. So the first book is the Inheritance Games, the second book is the Hawthorne Legacy, and then the third book is the Final Gambit. This one I loved immensely. Like, I loved it. I love it with all my heart. Like, it's one of my most favorites of all time. And whilst reading this, it felt like I was on a high every time, and I could not put them down. I just love them, and I love Jamie, and I cannot help but root for him, even from the very beginning. And I just love the golden retriever best friend energy. I also just love the riddles, the games, the mystery. It was so exciting to read. And yes, this is a young adult trilogy, but it's not boring. And I'm 22, and I was still so able to enjoy it. So don't limit yourself from these types of things, and I hope you give it a try. Honestly, it's one of my favorites of all time, and I cannot help. If I were to recommend just one from these books that I read last January, it would be the Inheritance Games trilogy. No doubt about it. I love it. I loved it. I love it so much. Next is Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This is by V.E. Schwab. This is an adult fantasy-ish, romance-ish. This is more of literary fiction because this centers on Addie LaRue, basically. And I loved the writing. I loved how this felt so elegant. It was so enjoyable. And I remember reading this and thinking that I was so grateful that this existed in my life. I lived in a lifetime that I was able to read this and I was able to be exposed to this masterpiece. So it's one of the best books that I've read. Okay, so now let's go to the sixth book that I read. Actually, this one, it's also a trilogy. It's similar to the Inheritance games. That's why I actually read this and dabbled into this world because I was looking for something similar to the Inheritance games because I was still on a hangover. And this is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so Truly Devious is also it's a mystery. It's a murder mystery. Heavily emphasizing the murder part. Compared to the Inheritance games murder part was not really that prominent. But this one I enjoyed because of just the Sherlock Holmes feel. It felt thrilling to read. There was also a romance subplot in here, and this one is set in a boarding school. I liked it. I also liked that there was like a link decades ago, like to a mystery case that happened decades ago. It was so fun discovering what had happened and how it was connected to the present time. I could not help but be excited as I read it, but it wasn't as much on par with the Inheritance games or with the thrill that I felt with the Inheritance games. So this trilogy consists of Truly Devious is the first book. So the second book is The Vanishing Stair, and then the third book is Hands on the Wall. So I enjoyed it. If you enjoy these kinds of things, a murder mystery, romance subplot, YA, something wholesome, something just different. So yeah, I'll recommend this. Second to the Inheritance games. Okay. I dabbled a bit onto something that's heavily romanced, and I read this duology. So this is like a modern royal telling. This is the Royal We and the Heir Affair. So this is basically like Prince William and Kate Middleton fan fiction. And I love Kate Middleton and Prince William. I've been a fan of them since I was like 12. My grandmother still is obsessed with the royal family. So growing up, I was also exposed to that, and I could not help but be so fascinated with them. I did enjoy the Royal We. I enjoyed the first book. I liked the ending. I liked the romance. Can I just say that the Prince William counterpart here, which was named Nicholas or Nick, I did not like his character because it felt like he didn't have as much depth as I wanted him to have. Like, I cannot root for him to win, and it was so crazy. And I preferred his brother, the Prince Harry supposedly counterpart, which was named Freddie. And I love Freddie here. He also gave just the golden retriever best friends vibe. And I love that. And yeah, so I did enjoy this still. I like the ending. And you can probably guess, what happens here. Again, it's like a Kate Middleton, Prince William fanfiction. Second book, I did not enjoy as much. I honestly wish that it just ended the story with the first book. But I also like that I was able to see how the outcome of the characters and what their futures held and what had they chosen. I'm not a fan of characters settling in a relationship, settling for less. I don't like when I read those kinds of things. It makes me feel sad because I think I just want the best for everybody, even in fictional characters. So I'd wish that there are better outcomes for characters that, I wish that they don't have to settle for love or not even love. Sometimes people can gamble away love for something else, safety, an easier life, a more sustainable life than pursuing a love that burns, a love that fails, a love that is true, a love that is pure and persevering. Because, honestly, it made me feel so sad because it felt like he had given up. You'll get what I mean even if you read this. So, anyways, let's move on. 11th book that I read last January was Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake. So this is a philosophical love story. This was different from anything I've read I think this was the first time I read a love story that was not heavily on the plot, not even like character building, but it was just really so contemplative with their dialogues, with the tension that they had with one another. It was so interesting to read this. And basically, this centers on two couples, and they both are deemed unstable or abnormal and by society, and how they traverse through that as they fall in love with each other. And of course, people are against it because everybody feels like they won't last, or even if they do, they feel so volatile, they feel so reactive with one another that you cannot help but be worried for them. So yeah, that's basically what I felt whilst reading this. I wouldn't say I would recommend it for everybody. I rated this 3 out of 5 stars. The writing also, I was able to speed through just quickly, but it felt like if I was in a position wherein I don't have brain cells to spare and I just want good escapism, this is not it. Okay. So, yeah, but it was an interesting read. Okay, so the 12th book that I read last January, it's If You Could See the Sun by Anne Liang. This is a romance, YA romance. It has like a fantasy element into it. I read this because I was looking for an academic rivals to lovers story, and this was one of the most recommended ones. It's fairly popular right now. I had so much expectations for this, honestly. Did not deliver as much as I wanted to, but I did enjoy the story. I wanted the banter. I was looking for that tension between the academic rivals, but it wasn't there. But I like the fact that there are cultural themes in here, like about Chinese families, and I was able to relate to that. It was again being brought into also having a fantasy like element into the story. It was different. It was unique. It felt unique. I still would recommend this if you're looking for an academic rivals, the lover story. I wasn't able to find the banter or just the tension among the rivals that I wanted them to have. So, yeah. Okay, so the 13th book that I read was You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hoggle. This was my most favorite romance book last month. Because I love the second chance. I love this one. This delivered the banter. This was so comical. Yeah, they were out to get each other, trying to force one another to basically break the engagement first. They were trying to push the other to break their engagement. And it was so funny how they were able to do that. But also, I loved the, heartbreaking parts in this. That parts wherein they wanted to reconcile, the parts wherein they were still fighting, the parts wherein, they were able to want to heal and just the second chance, like wanting to, revive whatever they had. And I love it, I love it, I love it. It was a portrayal of probably relationships that, it doesn't always work the way you want it to, that you have to work for it, that you have to stay, that love perseveres, that love is maybe relearning, that love is also maybe giving it another chance. No, it's not outright dismissing that you're unhappy, that you should give up, that it's already the dead end, that there's nothing you could do about your relationship. It takes discernment to know when to stay and when to go. I realized also that maybe second chance love stories are a closer portrayal to what relationships are and what romance is in real life. Again, it's just a food for thought. Okay, so for the last book that I read last January, it's an audiobook. It's a Christian book. Okay, probably not exclusively Christian, but I loved Searching for Enough by Tyler Staton. It came at a time in my life wherein I realized that it was so timely because I'm at a point wherein transitions happen, and as a young adult, you're also just trying to ask where you're at and where you're going, and if I'm still like making sense out of my life and all those things. And right now it feels like I'm still on a search of what's enough, and maybe that's finances or career wise or relationships wise. And I loved how this came at the time wherein I was questioning what's enough and how to be enough, and what achievements will ever be enough, what amount of money will ever be enough, and all those questions. And I loved how this grounded me and humbled me back to just what's the truth, and what's real, and also just coming to terms that it's normal to feel like this. It's normal to question these things, that these things don't repulse God. You can be so honest with him. You can be so raw in front of him, and with your doubts, with your worries, and with whatever you're feeling, and he's able to handle that. He's not so small or so obnoxious or proud. He's none of those things, and he's able to welcome you and carry that and answer you, and yeah, redirect you even. So if you're looking for something like that, please check this out. I enjoyed it, and I hope you will too. So that's it. Actually, that those are all the books that I read last January. Thank you guys for staying this long. Thank you again for being here and for listening. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that you were able to get an idea of what you want to read next. And I will see you again next time. Bye bye.